Hi, my name is Andrew, and in this video, I'm going to be giving you the absolute basics that you need to start making music with your upright. Let's get into it. Let's talk about how high the bass should be. Generally, you want the top of the strings here, this part is called the nut, to align basically with about the top of your head or your mid-forehead, so that your eyes are level about an inch or two to the neck. You'll see a lot of bassists do this differently. Some have it very low, some have it very high, especially the old school players, but I would suggest at first try to level it so it's just about forehead to eye length. All right, now let's talk about how we want to hold the bass. So we don't want the bass to be standing straight up and down like this, and we don't want to stand directly behind it like this, or to the side of it like this. What we want to do is we want to take the back corner of it, here's the back panel of the bass, and here's what's called the rib, and here's our back corner right here. And we want to take this and we want to indent it right into our groin, right into our inseam right here. And when we do that, you'll notice that I pull the bass into me a little bit so that there's a lean. Again, we're not straight up, even if it is against our stomach and our groin, it's not straight up and down. So you put it about, I'd say it's about 6 inches away from my body right here, and then I pull it into me like this. So now we've got that nice lean that's gonna, the bass should always be coming towards you. You got this nice lean, it's gonna be much easier to go up and down the neck. All right, so let's talk about our hand placement. On your left hand, you want your fingers to be curved. I had a bass teacher once describe to me that you want your left hand when playing upright to resemble a claw, like this. See that? Okay. When you're playing upright in the lower positions before you get over the break into thumb position, the only 3 fingers you want to use are your index, your middle, and your pinky. You don't use your ring finger. So you kind of shape your hand like this, and nice and curved. I like to use the very pads of my fingers, the pads, as opposed to the very fingertips. You can use your fingertips, and that's kind of more of a classical approach, but for jazz, I think you get a better sound, a more warm, rounded sound when you're using the pads of your fingers. On the back of the neck, you want your thumb to sort of be about where your D string is. Your D string is your second to the top, this one right here. You want your thumb, your nail, to be about there, about where the D string is on the other side. You don't want it to come all the way around and slip like that. You don't want it to be hanging off to the side like that. Your thumb stays and anchors your hand on the back, okay? So when we have our claw on the pads of our fingers with our thumb on the back, it should look like this. Here's the front, and here's the back. Okay? All the way up and down just like that before we get to our neck joint right here. So now, the right hand. The playing area on the fingerboard when you're doing a jazz pizzicato style is right about here. This is about the distance that you want to be playing in. You don't want your hand to start creeping up here, and you definitely don't want your hand to go down here. The sweet spot where you're going to get your best tone is right about here. I'd say it's kind of like a 3-inch space from the end of the fingerboard about 3 inches up. And when you watch me play, my finger, the tips of my fingers on my right hand will always sort of be at the very end of the fingerboard like this. Right? If you start to come up here, tone's not going to be as full. It's a much duller tone. There's the sweet spot for playing. And when you're using your fingers, you can use 1 or 2. You don't play on your fingertips like we do on an electric bass like this. Use the fleshy part of your finger. When I say fleshy, I'm talking about this part right here. Right here, okay? Or on your middle finger about right here. Now, when to use your index, when to use your middle, or when to use both is sort of up to you. I watched a lesson with Ron Carter recently where right off the bat he was suggesting that you go for a 2-finger approach, plucking with your index finger, however. So it looks like this. Right? Sometimes if you're playing quicker passages, you're going to want to get both of your fingers involved. Either one is fine, but again, not the electric bass on your tip style, not like this. Curve it and play with that fleshy part right there. Now that we know the basics of how to hold the instrument and where our hands go, let's get into how to make a really great sound. A great jazz pizzicato sound is sort of a collaboration between both your hands. It's the fleshy part of your right finger combined with the pads of your left finger, like this. Okay? That's what's going to get you your best sound. Now let's talk about the right hand specifically for a minute. When you pluck a string, you want to pluck it and then catch it on the string directly behind it. So for example, if I'm plucking my D string, see how I caught it on the A string like that? Right? This is going to help you rebound when you're playing walking lines or playing quickly. So you don't want your fingers flying off the fingerboard like this, right? We want a nice steady pull that comes straight through the string and into the string behind it. All right, so and that's the same for all three of your top strings. On G, on the D string, on the A string. Now obviously when we get to our E string, we run out, there's not another string. So on this one, it's almost like there's somewhat of a curving motion that happens on this one. That was kind of exaggerated, you don't really want to do it that much, but it just kind of falls away just like that. And you can use the fact that there's not another string behind it to go for like sort of a really loud growl in your sound. Right, because there's no string to rebound from, I'm really digging and really getting a really solid pluck on that. If you listen to guys like Ray Brown, they do this kind of thing a lot. So now a really common problem that bass players have is a lot of buzzing coming off the instrument, kind of like this. This buzzing is almost always because the left hand doesn't have quite enough pressure on the strings holding it down as you're playing. Here's with proper amount of pressure. Now I'm gonna let up and use not enough. Now back to the right amount. Hear the difference? Here's what you should be doing in your left hand, and you can see it as I'm playing. Every time I play a note, as I go down my hand and use my different fingers, any finger that's behind the finger that I'm playing with is still down on the bass. So for example, if I play my first three notes of my G string, my G, A flat, A natural, and B flat, see how when I get to my B flat, my index finger and my middle finger are still down like this? I'm not doing this. See, you hear it starting to buzz as soon as I let my fingers fly like that? It's much easier to get the right amount of pressure when you have all your fingers down. So whenever I'm playing with my middle finger, my index finger is down. Whenever I'm playing with my pinky, both my index and my middle finger are down. Always. That'll help eliminate the buzzing that can sometimes happen up on this part of the instrument. Now let's talk about finding the notes on the neck. Obviously, unlike an electric bass, an upright bass does not have frets or fret demarcations. It's just one non-fixed pitched instrument. When you're just beginning, sometimes some teachers or some people will put tape or paint on the neck to sort of demarcate each fret, or sometimes just specific areas, like what the third note, right, would be the third fret, your B flat on the G string. Fifth fret would be your C, seventh, your D, 9, E, and then 12, where your octave is. You can do that. That's a fine way to learn when you're just getting started, but you absolutely don't have to do that. And usually in the classical world, it's not really a thing that you learn without it. A book you can look up that's been, I think it was first published in like 1881. It's in the public domain, so you can just go online and find it. It's the Simandl method. And the Simandl method is sort of the Bible text for classical bass players. But it does a great job of explaining what the hand positions are starting in, you have half and then first and then all the way up into your thumb position. Now I started on electric bass, so I didn't learn positions first, I learned frets first. So when I play upright, I'm kind of still thinking about the frets. If I play the first 5 notes on my G string, I'm just thinking about open, 1st fret, 2nd fret, 3rd fret, 4th fret, 5th fret, G, A flat, A, B flat, B natural, C. If you go from electric to upright, that's a fine way to think about it. There are some indications if you're, say you're figuring out a really difficult passage and it's very intricate fingering that you have to figure out, then you may need to go back, look at Samandal, look at the hand positions and understand how to shift between the different positions that you need to get to. But when you're just starting out, it's probably, if you're an electric player especially, it's probably best just to sort of think of the frets. On an electric bass, if you look at the neck, you'll see that the frets start to get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller as we work our way down the fingerboard. The same is true on upright. The note spacings get closer and closer and closer together. So you want to sort of be able to train your hand to know exactly where those notes are on the instrument. When you're just starting, just look at the instrument and visually see where your open is, where your first is, where your second, where your third, and just look at it and then try to remember in your hand what it feels like. You can test your intonation a couple different ways. I have a piano right here next to me, so one thing I can do is if I want to test, let's say I want to test how in tune I can make my A flat, which would be my 1st fret on my G string. Sounds pretty good. How about the next note, A? Pretty good. How about B flat, next note? All right, pretty good. Intonation for a bass player is a lifelong pursuit. Even on, the great records, all the great players, you will occasionally hear out of tune notes, but, that's all part of the process of playing upright.